hell is going on? Okay, so I honestly have no idea if the stream... It is working. Okay. So it's good. I just have no video feedback from YouTube. I have an error occurred. So it looks like everything is working because I can see myself down here, but for whatever reason in the actual, what do you call it? YouTube studio thing, I got nothing. So I am going to chug along. If anyone else is seeing this, just drop a little note or reaction in the chat, and then that way I know it's not just me. But yeah, I guess, like I said, I'm going off the assumption that everything is working. It's just I can't see anything up here. But I see myself down here, so I'm assuming that you see as well. Anywho, yeah. Okay, yeah, so it's working. It's just like a weird thing on my end, but it could be. Like I said, I was playing around. Actually, no, I did the stream last night, and everything worked then, so I don't really know what the deal is right now. But let me just double check again one more time to make sure that my headphones are working. All right, so yeah, we got 11 albums. It is, I don't know how to say it. I would say that I guess it's probably a little, no, it's actually not. I was going to say it's rap heavy, but it's not. We've got 3 kind of rap hip hop releases. We've got some electronic. We have a few jazzier, kind of lighter, funkier, dancey little ones. A lot of some spring ones. We've got an oddball assortment. Just going to put it out there too. No real rock or metal too. So it's pretty safe on that end of things as well. But I will just throw us right into it. Let me make sure unmuted, and hey, there we go. There we go. Okay, so I am going to kick things off with this album. This actually came out, I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, the 10th of April. And it's actually an album I was kind of excited for. I just, oftentimes I don't get around to things on the first week that they come out because of being backlogged or other releases coming out that catch my attention more. But this is the album First Day in Therapy from the artist Lotta Swag. Obviously the GOAT reference there with the rap thing, the GOAT, and not the most original album artwork, but fine, whatever. Anyway, I actually really liked Lotta Swag's output last year. He put out was it Moscow Tape, and then there was one that he released in the No Type. No Type and Moscow Tape last year were both very solid releases. I really enjoyed them. Kind of because they came out of left field. He's from Tambov, which is a very small provincial city. And just a real fresh face, if you will, on the Russian rap scene. Use these really stripped down, simplistic beats. In my mind, recall what I consider to be kind of old school rap. Has this really laconic flow, but flexible also, which is good lyrically. It just was focused on the tried and true streets are hungry type stuff. But he also dabbled quite a bit actually especially on Moscow Tape, in the more self-reflective type of rap discussions about therapy and fears and shortcomings. So that's all here on this album. Plus, obviously, since he kind of rocketed at least upwards last year, there's a lot more discussion about the sort of like new money stuff or actually having money now. But this album feels very flat to me. It's just lacking a lot of what made No Type and Moscow Tape really fun listens last year. And it was something that it was one of those connections that I had made in my head, but I kind of brushed it off as just it not really being me perhaps being too critical of it. But and I was looking through other people's takes on this album, I saw it come up again and again, and that is a lot of people when listening to this album have just said this feels like he is doing Friendly Thug. And Friendly Thug, if you'll remember, is a rapper out of St. Petersburg. He's like one of the most popular rappers in Russia right now. I think he's horrible. I just cannot stand his style and like just in general his flow, just what he is rapping about. His beats are probably the best thing, but they're also not super exciting. And that's just kind of what this feels like. Now there definitely are some good moments on this. I'm not saying that the whole thing is throwaway, but it feels like half of it is old swag, and then half of it is this, I don't know, Friendly Thug swag that we're seeing here. So there's definitely some good stuff on this release, and there are like enjoyable tracks. It does not hold up to what he put out last year, but as I'm coming to expect here in 2026, I'm going to be talking, even if the releases aren't super great, about artists who I've talked about in the past. And interestingly enough, a lot of the artists that we have talked about in 2026 that had releases last year have not been super impressive. The other one that comes to mind is Dайте Tank, and there was another artist as well too who Kyo was the other one who, I don't know, maybe, don't want to knock my coffee over, maybe the artists need to maybe just take a little bit more time off and do stuff. But anyway, yeah, so some of the stuff that I thought was pretty good, like honestly this one I think was probably
Я захожу, со мной всегда стоит мой биг брой. Поднял этаж и теперь этот сокол видно. Я не буду броком, это очевидно. Деньги в кабинете, мой манагер.
Like his beats are still good, so, but I don't know how much of that is him, like him doing the beats or just him kind of choosing the right ones.
Да, я был на ферме, мы сделали грядок. Можешь не предлагать, братишка, я не падок. Мне нужны отчеты, привлеку для нас эти подряды. Разные города и разные квадраты. И нахуй лямы, если я не смог поднять брата. И если он торчал и спал, тогда в пизду у брата. Я убрал таких пятак и впереди таких масс. И я СП забрал пи... Представляю в голове козу официальный джи в любую канитель. Нажимаю рэк Владивосток на отель. И, пожалуй, буду честен, буду говорить как есть. Я переживал за свой финансовый успех, когда сидел за тесным столиком с Арсением в кафе. Но подняли ставки,
Track specifically feels like a 50-50 mix of that older sound and then a lot of the stuff on this album that reminds me of Friendly Thug. And again, like if you know, you're not super into Russian rap or anything in general, it probably doesn't make a huge difference, but I honestly, I want to say like 3M is a really good example.
Я боюсь меняться так же, как остаться. Я боюсь, что брат не стерпит, просто нахуй тебя шаг. Четвертый студийный ожидает, он уже записан, музыка.
This is a really good example of what I mean by that, like friendly thugization of Swag's music.
Хочется флексить, нахуй вас без негатива. Я акула из Тамбова, ловлю столичную рыбу. У меня стоит
Just like this really,
что вы там не стоите. Твой любимый рэпер, он не рэпер, он теперь запикан. Теперь можно не смотреть на цены в магазине. Родители
really almost minimalist beat, but then a flow, like rhythms that don't really line up and they're just kind of like slaps on top of this bare bones. I don't know.
У меня кастомный флоу, а не пиздит его со сливов. Запутался кому чего, почем я должен, интересно, пойдет процесс, если
I understand it's probably an artistic choice, but it also feels like a teenager who thought they have like a really sick line, but don't pay any attention to what's the term in poetry? Meter, right? So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mix. I'll try to end with something here that's pretty solid. I don't remember. Yeah, all right. So I mean, like, there are good tracks on this album. I'd say it's about a 50-50 split, and I do hope this is more just like an experimental thing from Swag, and I do hope that he'll go back to a bit more of the sound that made him famous. I don't know if this is again just him playing around, or if he is trying to expand his fan base even further by emulating Friendly Thug, who, like I said, is probably one of the more popular Russian rappers right now. But if he's attempting to, you know, bite that style, then I don't think it's gonna play out well in the long run. So anyway, hell of a line to end on right there. That is the album First Day in Therapy, the artist whole lot of swag. Again, if you don't speak Russian, then you can probably still hear some of the things that I'm talking about, but if you do speak Russian, then I don't know. I guess take that. And again, the album artwork is pretty cliche too. It feels kind of dialed in, but moving on. It's been a minute here on the stream since we've had one of those more ambient, spacious, kind of quiet releases, and this is one of those. This is the Glowing Town Tapes EP by Zhokhowski. Yeah. And I do really like, it's just a photo, but the album artwork is quite nice. It, I don't know, kind of fits with the Glowing Town Tapes. It works well. 4 very short tracks. I know it's like, what, 7 minutes long, but it is one of those that I was doing stuff and it just would cycle through, and it works. It kind of goes over and over again because they're so short but they're all kind of similar. They were recorded on vintage synthesizers. I don't really know all the technical aspects, but there's some sort of special, again, retro reverb device that was using this. But I think this is the most interesting thing, one of those aspects that maybe in 2026, not as niche as it would have been, say, 10 or 15 years ago, but it was recorded on cassette decks. So it's kind of like analog. There's definitely something, I would say, nostalgic and haunted sounding in the tracks. I mean, this does sound a little 8-bit, like kind of like a little bit like some old SNES game or even NES game. So you get like that type of stuff, and then it's honestly the type of, like, each of these tracks, well, I don't know, personally, listening to them, I would kind of like to see all of them expanded. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen, but these sort of musical ideas would be interesting to see where they would go if they were given a bit more time to breathe and expand. But and then obviously, like, Lines and Pipes has a slightly different sound. I mean, like, there's a similar sound between all of them, but yeah, Anyway, very short release, just kind of an interesting one. It was, honestly, with like really short releases like this, I never know whether or not to talk about them. But like I said, I don't remember what I was doing. I mean, honestly, it's 7 minutes long, so I have typically the thing set so that the album repeats, and I mean, I probably listened to this like 3 or 4 times, and it did kind of start to get in there, so it creates an atmosphere. Anyway, very nice, very short, kind of chill, like I said, kind of nostalgic, but also kind of ghostly in a way, like I guess, yeah, nostalgic and ghostly, we'll go with that. So very short EP, The Glowing Town Tapes, by the artist Zhokhowski, who I believe is actually like a bit of a this isn't necessarily the type of music he typically makes. I'm pretty sure he's more involved in like actual piano composition and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a different sound from him, if I remember correctly. Okay, this next one, definitely one of those I did not think. There's a lot of albums that I slap into the monthly playlists, and just oftentimes looking at the album artwork or the name of the individuals, a lot of times I can kind of guess in advance whether or not it's going to be something I just automatically delete or something that's just kind of run of the mill. And I honestly thought that was going to be the case here. This is Sekkkond. It's a self-titled mini album here. And yeah, I definitely thought this was going to be some sort of edgy. I mean, obviously you can kind of see with the typeface and everything. But yeah, now we haven't really talked about archivecore this year. There hasn't really been that much of it, even though as a genre it kind of exploded onto the local scene here with multiple artists last year for 2812, Mad Kid. I cannot think of any more, but there were like 4 or 5 that I saw regularly last year, and I just like cannot keep all of these artists in my head and to drag them up at recall because they've put out very few releases. But anyway, some of them have appeared since the start of the year, but they've been smaller releases, and it seems like a lot of them aren't maybe quite sure how to do follow-ups to like these big, again, breakout successes that they probably didn't think were going to be huge successes. And let's be real, they're not huge successes, but albums that garnered a lot of attention and praise and like just positive critical reception from basically a bunch of teenagers / like people out of high school, just out of high school, who were releasing just stuff to SoundCloud, and it kind of caught like wildfire on various musical communities online, and people started discussing them, and I do think that like that might play into it, that there's like what do I do now? But this is kind of archivecore, and it's kind of the first thing. I think it's technically the second sort of archivecore release that we're going to be talking about. And again, archivecore, for those of you who might not recall or know, is like this really specific type of SoundCloud rap sound where things are heavily distorted and like kind of glitchy. But Sekkkond here actually is not a new artist. He released stuff under the moniker Second Hand in the past, which I think there were other people involved, but this is the first release since sort of changing his moniker. And yeah, I don't know. So I didn't listen to Second Hand. I don't know if this is a new direction, but I would assume that it kind of is. I said this is archivecore, but it's also hyperpop. And I would say that in a lot of ways, it's actually more of the hyperpop. It's just musically all over the place. Now, there are sections and transitions on this album or this mini that can be quite abrasive and have that really hyper glitched and sort of unpleasant aspect that archivecore revels in. And a lot of, but like those moments, and then a lot of the lyrics, which, man, the word suka on this album is here just an insane number of times. But there's also just plenty of lyrics about being young and depressed and terminally online and like just what you would expect from kind of a teenage boy, for better or worse. I guess we'll put it at that. But like the sound and that hyperactive, there's a hyperactivity to the lyrics and the overall musical composition that work together. I think I've used this phrase before, but I'm going to use it again, which is garbage canning, which is, again, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with this, and I'm assuming that, I don't know how widespread this term is, but as growing up in the States, you could go get the soft drinks, the fountain drinks at a, like a McDonald's or Burger King, any fast food joint. Really a lot of restaurants. And as a kid, there was always that temptation to mix the flavors. And if you mixed all of the flavors together, that was a garbage can. And that's kind of musically what this is. It just feels like he just added a little bit of everything. And it's like, it's not bad. It's just weird. It's just like, it's an everything / nothing flavor. It's hard to describe, but it's okay. It's kind of fun at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a few. So a little dancey. But I'm just going to jump ahead. These are all very short tracks. I'm just going to jump ahead to kind of like get into that. Done intentionally, but yeah. Again, that kind of like Euro trance sound. Started with Euro trance, shifted into like, I don't even know, pop punk, Good Charlotte-y type of, but with that heavy distortion too. And then, like I said, it's garbage can music. Like we get like a soft jazzy section here out of nowhere. But it's one of those where, again, how do you describe this sound? You don't. It's just one of those things that it's short enough, right? It is 14 minutes long, so it's not one of those experiences that you like really need to get into. It's like a garbage can soft drink. If you don't like it, it's, you know, really nothing lost. But I do think this is one of those releases where, you know, there's a good number of these that come out. But all things considered, they're kind of fun. Ultimately, kind of forgettable, but it's only 14 minutes long too. Like, I don't expect this to be one of those things that wedges in my memory for a long period of time. So it's kind of nice to have these little, whatever you want to call this, from time to time. So we got like the bass drop, like Skrillex or something. So yeah, all over the place, but it is just in that for that particular reason is kind of what makes it interesting, is the fact that it does not have a specific sound. But I will say, even though it is all over the place, it still kind of all works, and it's not just random sounds thrown together. There is a method to the madness. So that is the album. That's a self-titled album from the recently remonikered artist Sekkkond. Very simple album artwork, really nothing to talk about there. Okay, another artist who I talked about last year, xvostik. Try that again. Xvostik. I don't know why. Sometimes I just can't get it. Xvostik. Anyway, yes. This is the EP Холодно. Last year, xvostik released an album, Shadows at 3 a.m. Had a bit of a darker electronic sound to it. I really enjoyed it. I was when I did my albums I really enjoyed from the first quarter. That was one of the ones that I pointed out. And I actually just recently talked about xvostik with I cannot remember the name of the group now. I should have looked it up, but there was like a grunge gaze group that she is part of. It's like one of her side projects. I think I talked about that last month or so. She, she's been doing stuff, and this EP is kind of the first thing, at least her first solid release. I think there have been a few singles since last year's Shadows at 3 a.m. But this is definitely not. So холодно means cold in Russian, and this isn't really a cold sounding release at all. It's kind of bright and bouncy. Feels very much like a spring type sound. Got a lot of the drum and bass, UK garage, even froggy jungle, and a lot of the vocal elements feel like a bit of that old Euro techno, the Russian techno of the late 90s, early 2000s. Kind of fun. I mean, it's different. Shadows at 3 a.m. still, I like that, but this is just kind of, it's that same core idea, but just in a slightly brighter, bouncier format. So, also I do like the use of frog ribbits as like that really sped up element in the background. Even the album artwork recalls the like early 2000s style electronic album artwork. Yeah, the frog samples. Gotta love the frog samples. So yeah, just again, Pretty light, pretty bouncy. Just a nice short little kind of electro pop EP here with a bit of a throwback sound to, again, the late 90s, early 2000s, and what was happening both in like the electronic scene in the UK, but also just in the pop scene, like the kind of electronic music pop scene from that same time period. So, yeah. That is the EP Холодно from the artist xvostik. So, hey, good stuff. All right. Moving along, the next two are kind of that bouncier, funkier, jazzier little bit. So the first one up here we have is the album Vertigo by the collective Francis Owens. I don't actually know what Francis Owens is a reference to, or if anything. I really do like the album artwork too. It is kind of catchy. It works. It's got a lot of it. It feels very like an indie pop album cover from the early 2010s, right? Like a Hot Chip album cover. Jazzy, funky, indie pop. That's what this is. So it is appropriate. English lyrics. That is also one of the things to point out here. Got a bit of Latin percussion, swing rhythms, just light, really dance-oriented music, type of thing that fits really well into the spring atmosphere, kind of like a nice spring morning or afternoon when it's quite sunny and warm and breezy outside. Just to take a quote from the artist or from the group itself about the album. Quote, "The whole album plays on the contrast between the melancholic personal lyrics and the dynamic sweeping arrangement. In this contrast, you find the realism of what is described. In your head, your thoughts won't stop. They circle around the past painful experiences, but the world around you moves quickly forward, sweeping everything out of its way, and you unwillingly move with it together, and things are easier." So even though the music is quite bright and bouncy, lyrically, it's not like, rainbows and puppy dogs. But again, you probably could maybe miss that. Damn, what do I want to start? Actually, with Sad Samba, we're going to go with that.
You brought me something more than just a dream. An unexpected scene, a tempting beam. But said the closing come to lost that show, and blissful shape dissolved. I was so stupid, I'm so sorry. It was a perfect chance I had today. I was afraid I made you worry. In fact, I made a big mistake. The most difficult part is that you rest. The best way of the best. I've hunted, but suddenly I snatched it from my heart and we returned to the start. I was so stupid, I'm so sorry. It was a perfect chance I had to take. I was afraid I made you worry. In fact, I made a big mistake. Again, with a mirror in my arms, I'm suffering with the pain in my head. My eyes are full of hopelessness.
Yeah, I mean, lyrically, if you're following along, you can kind of hear some of the
There was a time
darker, bleaker themes. But
I used to talk to people when I sin. My words were burning holes in their hearts like there once. And now I'm dancing again.
but the overall arrangement is kind of where, like, I mean, I'll be honest. I always wonder if I'm like too critical with English lyrics in Russia, or if it's one of those things where I should be a little bit more forgiving, because like I understand how difficult it can be to go from one language to another. So it's always one of those where it's like you make the choice to do it. So should you be like held up to the same standards, or those awkward kind of goofy moments in the lyrics, are those just like an artifact type of thing and give it a little variety. I think that really just depends too on your own personal mood. But when I was first listening to this, I came at it kind of from that more critical perspective, and so the lyrics and how they kind of fit sometimes rubbed me the wrong way, and I was just like, I don't really know about this. But I don't know, just like the actual instrumentation grew on me over time, and then it got to the point too where I kind of stopped listening to the lyrics and just focused in on the vocals as another element to the overall instrumentation, at which point in time I could ignore some of those, like the phrasing or little things like that. Not to say the lyrics are bad, it just like kind of, you know, straightforward. But it's nice. It's like there's a jazziness to it that you don't normally hear with a lot of the sort of indie pop, and it adds like a little bit of that, like the splash in the cymbals, and again just like the rhythms that they're using. So it's nice. It's definitely a nice little release, and again kind of a change of pace. So this is the album Vertigo from the group Francis Owens. And then the next album is kind of in that same vein. This is Зоркое Сердце from the artist Alina Rostotskaya. This is indie jazz, but it's also kind of pop rock. Kind of depends on any given track, but there's a lot of neo soul, some really light hip hop elements, a bit of funk in there as well. Musically, it is quite varied, but it does kind of feel like what you would think of as club music, but not like as in a dance club, but as in like a kind of a jazz swing club. Obviously, man, I don't even know. I think this is the one I want to start with. Honestly, here the voice is the centerpiece, and everything is kind of working around Alina's voice here. And like, I don't know, she very solid singer, and I don't know, it's just a very pleasant release. Yes. I jumped too far into the chorus, so. But like her own, doing her own backing, you know, harmonic vocals or vocal harmonies, I suppose. So yeah, again, here you can hear a little bit of that indie jazz, if you will. So again, the sort of lighter hip-hop elements. But you can hear kind of the funk there too, and it's like, not to say that you never hear this type of music in Russia, but it's just not like super common, for reasons I'm sure. But I do think the ender too, I mean, obviously it's like 7.5 minutes long, so it really builds and swells, and I mean, like, it's obviously can't be the centerpiece, it's the ender, it's the final track, but kind of in some ways maybe the strongest track. A lot of the album, like the first 6 tracks, the majority of the album, like heavily feature either guest vocalists or musicians, or just the musicians on the tracks themselves. Like you just heard on that one before, where like with the kind of the jazzier drumming and the I don't even know if that was like a muted trumpet or a guitar effect that they were using there. But on the final track, it is a lot more just kind of vocally focused, and it kind of has like this back and forth. So compared to the rest of the album, it does feel a little bit more stripped down, but it actually, I think that works in its favor. Not completely, obviously, like there's still enough going on that it's not just solo voice, but so anyway, if you're looking for something a little with a bit more, again, that sort of swing and jazz and funk and soul type of stuff going on, again, maybe just my own personal association, but this is the type of music that you kind of imagine in one of those like jazz clubs or something that you would, I don't know, like with velvet tapestries on the walls and velour covered cushions on the in the booths. So yeah. Anyway, just like a very kind of upbeat, swingy album. Again, just like with that last one with Vertigo, really fun, bouncy release. Just a really nice listen. So that is the album Зоркое Сердце by the artist Alina Rostotskaya. Anyway, moving on, we're moving into, from here on out, we've got kind of, well, no, it's still a mixed bag. Up first, we have Durst, and this is the album Echoes of Childhood 2. So Durst actually gained quite a bit of fame and notoriety for being a funk producer, Phonk, not funk, but funk, and which is a really like bass-heavy kind of, I don't really know how to explain this. You'll hear bits and pieces of it on this release, but he has like a track on Spotify that's got like 500 million listens and stuff like that. But he has been working to prove he's not a one-hit wonder. For those familiar with like video games, he worked on the soundtrack for Atomic Heart and Komarova, which was one of the tracks there that kind of also went somewhat viral online and had a bit of, that was like he was responsible for reworking that, and that gained popularity. So he's kind of showing that he's got more going on, and here he's also pushing into a new direction. So funk too is not like a super old genre, and it is starting to evolve a little bit. That the artists who kind of made a name for themselves with it, some of them are starting to push into new territories or play with the sound, and that's what's happening here. the best way to describe this album, and it is going to sound ridiculous, but this is 8-bit Jersey cyberfunk. Sounds a little bit like chiptune music. It's got a little bit of that Jersey step music, and it's funk, but it also feels like it's something out of a cyberpunk thing. I don't know. I'm just gonna go ahead and play a little bit, and hopefully you'll figure out what I'm talking about. And here we got these nice little visuals here too. So you got the vocal samples like Jersey. You have the chiptune sound. Right. But kind of that distortion and some of the beats, not maybe as much. This track reminds me quite a bit of the Postal Service as well. But you can hear the Jersey sound, you can hear the chiptune here, and the funk. Let me try to find one with a little bit of the funk sound. So, yeah. This is that kind of funk sound. But again, kind of filtered through a bit of a chiptune sound. Like that heavier distortion, and again the Jersey here as well too. So. General idea of the sound. I think you get it. I don't know. I had a good time with it. I've got it written just like in the notes. Nostalgia for a future half remembered, and I think that is kind of cryptic and vague, but also kind of makes sense for the general sound. So, nice little mini album. It's kind of a fun sound. Again, probably not for everyone, but I do think if you generally enjoy either funk music or electronic music or chip, like there's a nice overlap of different sounds here, and it creates something that is a bit unique in its own way. So that is the mini album Echoes of Childhood 2 by the artist Durst. I'm assuming that is the artist himself at a young age. There's also some vocal samples of him that like him recorded something with his uncle or his grandmother or his grandfather. I don't remember exactly, but anyway. Moving on to the next one. This is interesting one. This is pыль. Oh God, I'm gonna screw. Let's start with the group's name. Много человеческих. All right, I can get that out, which is like a lot of человеческих, human, but like not humans. Human as an adjective. A lot, much humanity. Maybe I don't know exactly how you would translate that. Много человеческих. And the album is pыль. I hate Myak is it means dust is what it means. Pыль. It's gonna sound horrible. Yeah, I mean, if any Russian speakers are looking at this, then they can I know how to say the word, but I actually hate saying this word. I also hate having to deal with dust, so that's probably part of it. But здесь много. If I say много, then I gotta change that. Лед. Что еще может? Пыль. Пыль. Kind of like that. It's not the best, but switching over from a lot of English chatting into that pılь it's about the best you're gonna get. So yeah, honestly, this is a weird album. You can kind of maybe get that from the album artwork, which is, I actually kind of love it. It's super cryptic. One of those experimental albums, kind of feels like it wants to push you away as much as it wants you to be pulled into it. Every other track is an obstacle for you to get through. They're very noisy, a lot of noisy and chaotic tracks, but they are always following ones that are like actual songs, if you will, and that are really well put together. Songs themselves shift in styles. You have one that's kind of like moody, emo, electronic. There's some post-punk. There's an acoustic track. There's just a lot going on this album. It's and honestly, I was reading people writing about this said that there's actually one of the songs is the lyrics of the song are taken from a 1990s cartoon. I have no idea. There's like too much there that I was just not willing to go that deep into it. It's one of those underground musicians who is just kind of doing whatever, but doing it well. And so it's just kind of like anything and everything. And yeah, like the first track definitely caught my attention. And it takes some time. Right, like at first I was like, okay, this is gonna be some sort of industrial noise album, cause yeah, it looks like it could be that. But then, and I was like, wait, is this like an bedroom indie release? So I still love this track. This track is it's so plodding. It just moves so slow, but at the same time it doesn't ever feel like it's dragging. So like this is the opening track and I was just like, okay, damn, all right, so this is kind of we got a little, it kind of feels like emo electronic Death Cab for Cutie type of stuff going on here. I was like, all right, I'm on board with that. Just hold up, track 2 is unpleasant. Well, I mean, it's not unpleasant, but so this is what I was talking about, right? You start with that first track that is like an actual, there's like, it's very slow, it is still kind of odd, but it's a song. And then the artist hits you with a 1 minute, just like, nope. And then I heard the second track and I was just like, oh, so maybe it's like a noise rock thing. But then we have post-punk, just all over the place. So, honestly, when I was listening to this album the first time, like, I was completely lost by the third track because I did not understand what the hell was going on. And then you get to the fourth track. Can Can I go to the fourth track? Spotify, can we? And there's no vocals here, but it is this like really kind of like unhinged electronic / live instrument jam session. And it's just kind of all over the place, and then you go into an acoustic track.
Я давно это знал и стал слышать, что все слова неуловимо тихо, но все же.
It's a very hard sell, I know, right? Like just kind of going through all of this. But I don't know, overall it's even the chaotic tracks are done like there's thought put into them, obviously, otherwise it would just be completely unlistenable. As much as I personally still don't enjoy the second track, like as I listen to it I can still hear what's going on there. Same with the fourth track, Tunnel, and Процесс, the sixth track, is more of that too. But I do find, obviously the final three tracks do feel a bit more forgiving, even though realistically this is supposed to be one of those tracks that is a bit of a push you away moment. I don't know, it reminds me again of just like it's a bit odd, but it works. That back and forth ultimately works with this. There are tracks that are not as enjoyable as others, but at least, for example, in the example of the second track, it's very, very short. Or in a situation like Процесс, and it's something that feels like Dan Deacon, and it's just like this, again, really intense electronic noise. It still ultimately is, I don't know, there's something still going on there. So even if it's not like something that immediately hooks you, it is still going to pull you along and not leave you on the side. But yeah, ultimately that back and forth, when you do come to tracks that are like really strong and well put together and just like islands of calm, right? These little, even this one, which is just instrumental and very simple and straightforward. After these other, like this whiplash moment, and you finally come to something like this, I don't know, you appreciate it a little bit more. And I guess for people who like things a little bit more chaotic and more wild, then for them it's the opposite thing that they're experiencing. So this is one of those albums where it's like, I kind of really only like half of the album, but then I also understand what's going on with the other ones. And there are, like, I do kind of like Tunnel. Not, I also kind of enjoy, even though they're kind of those odd tracks that are supposed to be a bit more of like you keeping your distance from getting too comfortable on the album. But yeah, I don't know. It's again, it's kind of an odd sell. It's like half of the album you'll enjoy, the other half you might not enjoy as much. That doesn't sound as like, but it's one of those things where like it all goes together, the yin and the yang, if you will. So it's a weird one. This is a weird album, but I do think it's an interesting one, and it's from an artist who is like just so deep in the Urals that, I don't know, just like one of those underground musicians who's just doing weird shit just because, like, why not? It's not like, you know, just making weird music to make weird music and just doing anything and everything because, like, what else is there to do? So that is the artist Много человеческих, and the album is Пыль. 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 God damn it. Dust. Ay, ay, ay. Anywho. All right. We're going to be finishing out kind of with some like bigger release. Again, these next two are artists that we talked about last year, and they actually kind of have come through with some pretty good stuff. So the first one up here is BATO, with the album, the mini album here, Другой 2, Другой 2. Last year, BATO came out with a bit more of like an aggressive actual rap album, kind of a classic sounding one under the name Blank Name. And this is something of an alter ego, at least sonically, to that. There's a lot more experimentation. The lyrics are more personal and emotional. And there is, honestly, here, a much greater focus on the musical end of things, which is honestly why I really enjoyed this as much as I did. There are a lot of different sounds on this album. Each track has a different sound, but there are tracks that reminded me of like Radiohead or the quieter Nine Inch Nails tracks, of like the era of Drake when he was still very young and very hungry. Kind of, again, that death cab, emo core type stuff going on. Like just these weird funky house dance party tracks. Each track has its own sound and its own atmosphere, but they're executed like very nicely. It's very atmospheric too. Yeah, like this is the one that reminds me of kind of like that quieter Nine Inch Nails, like with the piano, or again, Radiohead. I mean, this feels like it's something off the Fragile. I mean, aside from the lyrics and the singing. This sounds a lot like, God, what's the name of the song from Drake? No. Take Care. That's the one I'm thinking of. This feels like the Take Care era of Drake. Especially like the synth that's gonna come in there. That's straight up from that era of Drake, like headlines. There's a lot of auto-tune too, but like it's again one of those situations where this is like the kind of the death cab sort of sounding sample in the background here, but yeah, the auto-tune is again one of those things that I'm usually not a huge fan of, but it is not so nerve grating on this release, and it's not always present too, so that's probably a big part of it. But so yeah, right, the rapping or whatever is not the main. I don't know why this just reminds me of Death Cab for some reason. Death Cab for Cutie, but or again the Postal Service, I guess, for a similar reference there, slightly different, but yeah. It's the second time I've referenced Postal Service this evening, so I guess. And then again, like kind of that funkier dance party vibe, right? So lyrically, there's not like a ton going on here, and it's okay. It's, you know, these are not long tracks. You can take a look down the side there. The longest one is what, 2:44, which is honestly a bit of a surprise. Most of them clock in around 2 minutes, but that's okay. Like, it just cycles through a bunch of these musical ideas, and it does fit with the name of the album. Другой is other, right? You could maybe translate it as different as well, other or different. So this is the second one. He did another album like this, I guess, a few years back. I don't know. I didn't really listen to it. I just didn't listen to it. But with that in mind, this idea of it being different or something other, and perhaps being a chance for him to lyrically do something a bit less aggressive and more simple and straightforward, right? You have words like mirror, freedom, tomorrow, silence, angel, alone, I won't find, fate, night. Like, there's a lot more of an intimate nature just in the lyrics and the song titles, and the music also kind of fits into that. It is a bit more intimate in that regard too. So really, I don't know, just kind of like a fun, short, little enjoyable one. A lot of fun little musical things, a lot of catchy stuff going on. Relatively simple, relatively straightforward, but that's okay too. That is the mini album here, Другой 2 by BATO or BATO. The other, tab limit. We're at the tab limit. The other artist who we heard from last year was ROUH. Actually, twice last year. One of his releases last year was his second solo album, and then he had a dual album with the artist Sensi. This is a guy who was a producer on Saluki's Wild East, which I still think is a fantastic album. And yeah, he produced this entire album as well too, and his production is still like incredibly solid. His flow is also really good here. The lyrics and the album in general are inspired by the Chelyabinsk region of the Ural Mountains. That's where the term, which the name of the mini album here, РУССКАЯ BRAЗИЛИЯ, or like Russian Brazil, is actually a reference to a certain part of the Chelyabinskaya Oblast where there's like specific mineral deposits which are very, very similar, and in gold, I think, as well, very, very similar to what Russian geologists found in Brazil, like, I don't know, in the 18th century or the 19th century. And yeah, so it's a rap album, but ROUH has an ear for pop, and that really works in his favor. So like, this is one of those heavy albums. Like, there's a lot of like heavy rap sort of stuff going on here, but it's also just like really catchy. A lot of different sounds, a lot of different ideas, but the way that it's sequenced in the production, just everything kind of pops.
Там, где золото это валюта, и поэтому все такие поползновения, они и советские власти, да и в настоящее время, они пресекали. Путь есть путь, но мы все здесь для того, чтобы взять свое золото. Все, кого я знаю, даже тех, у кого топ, все, что? Это взять свое золото. Улыбка без мимики, плюс климат-контроль. Хочу взять свое золото. Ты же не машина, нет, или доколы бро-бой. Сука, заткнись и бери свое золото. Сука, заткнись и бери свое золото. Сука, заткнись, не давай никому повода. Сука, заткнись и бери свое золото. Сука, заткнись и бери свое золото. Братик с Урала, это русская Бразилия. Сука, заткнись и бери свое быстро. Заткнись, бери свое золото. Похую на кэш, опять воняет принц. Я всегда за идею. Идиоты вообще с приступом. Я закинул удочку, потом пошел и выстрелил.
Really good.
Крим, опять балуемся. Добрый нам.
But just to highlight some of the other musical ideas happening here, and that there's
посоветовали сделать. Я пошел и сделал их свой в доску, но не квой, за меня кричит дело. Продул свою эс за пару кучу бэгов. Теперь этого дурака держит за километр. В чьих-то глазах ментор, мы с замашками из гетто. Тяжелые карманы до нас не сдувает ветром. Рифмы, кеты, диеты, независимо от таблеток. Записал на бумажку порцию бреда. Общение с ним вредит, пятый год живет в кредит. Ты видел мое лицо, да, я превратился в кредит. Я здесь не один.
Again, production really solid, but ROUH's ability to kind of like deliver a bunch of lines, but also do it like really playfully, like the different voices and the switching things up. And
Правда интересное, что я еще могу.
I don't know, it makes it like a much more engaging listen. This is actually an explanation of where the term "Русская Бразилия" comes from. So, a little bit of a history lesson on the album as well too. So, right, like a heavier sound here as well too, but
Буду где-то в 3, брат. Что-то захватить, брат. Беру в темпе. Не могу уснуть который день, брат. 6 оу-оу, только на одном бите, брат. Мы заходим в заведение. Майка цвета настроения. И увидите разрешение на ношение. Джей и Алока. Брулер сверху до ног. Я джерси цвета ко. Выгляжу как игрок. Я Джей и Алока. Немало хочу много.
I forgot, but just hearing it now, this track, I might be way off on this one, but this one reminded me a whole lot of J. Cole as well, which I think might actually be the case. I feel like there was a moment on this too in his lyrics where it's just like he makes an allusion to that as well. But anyway.
Well, I've had enough.
We had, probably about a month ago at this point in time, Miyagi and Endspiel with Anabios, which was also like kind of an experimental rap album with that whole like Mexican cartel sort of theme, but just music that was doing its own thing kind of all over the place, with tracks that like it would be 2 minutes long, but there'd be 2 musical ideas across it. And this is not exactly that same thing, but what I said back then with Miyagi and Endspiel holds up now, which is that the Russian rap scene oftentimes kind of sucks or it's boring. Lotta Swag is a good example of this, right? Last year he was kind of doing his own thing, doing something new, and now it feels like he's just trying to fall into the fold. But when you have artists like ROUH here, who are kind of just doing stuff all over the place, mixing in different elements, different sounds, and just like not really trying to adhere to one specific rule or whatever set of rules they might have imagined, then you get stuff that's just a lot more inventive and fun and just engaging and interesting to listen to. So I do think that this mini album here is like a really, really solid one, and at least in terms of the Russian rap end of things, probably one of the better things to come out so far this year, in the first third basically of it. So, which, I don't know, maybe we're gonna have a stacked rest of the year so far, but yeah, this is a really good one. So yeah, this little mini album here, Русская Бразилия, by the artist ROUH, or ROUH, I think is how I should be saying it, ROUH. Really, really good stuff. But we're gonna be ending with kind of a different album, and I usually hate. This is the album Life is But a Dream by the artist Nicephorus. And I usually hate using the same kind of tired quote that literally every music page copy and pastes across like contact in places like that. But it's from the artist himself, the one that I saw over and over and over again. And I think it does a pretty good job at describing the album as well as anything that I could possibly. So this is what the artist himself had to say about this release. 8 years of work. For me, it was magical. I recorded opera vocals and violins, convinced drummers to play even crazier. I twisted the knobs of synths and amps to add electricity to the sound. I also traveled and recorded street musicians, birds, the sea. It was incredibly entertaining. This album is a result of my searches, experiments, and travels. This is one of those albums that just like showed up in every single, at least that I'm subscribed to, electronic music community, down-tempo, IDM, experimental, trip-hop, just like general electronic music. And it's kind of at the juncture of all of those things, but there's a lot of post-rock in this as well, and a lot of the kind of orchestral or like the sweeping indie rock kind of arrangements that you would hear on like the older Sufjan Stevens albums, where there's like a lot of things going on, but it's all very organized and there's an idea to it. I think as one person said, I'm just going to go ahead and hit play. As one person I saw a comment on this said, and I think this is a pretty good take, this feels less like an album and more somehow like just an overall soundtrack to life. So you got the opera vocals there for sure. It's ultimately just very cinematic, like a soundtrack to life, I guess. Again, right, long tracks. It's one of those albums where there's a lot going on the individual tracks, so jumping around is a very hard thing to do, but I'll try to highlight like another track, but this is one of those albums which happens from time to time where it's just like you kind of have to just sit down and listen to it, and which is, I don't know, it's just like it's a nice album. It's again, it's not really electronic music, but it is kind of electronic music. It's not really post-rock, but it kind of is post-rock. It's not really anything. It's I don't know. I don't like this. What is the genre to this? It's not really a genre necessarily. The artist himself has said too that evidently there are a few other albums from years back. I think the last one was 4 years ago or whatever. But it was just like after this is kind of the end of this project. So it's a bit of a culmination as well. this is definitely a little bit more electronic, so I do get why it's in there, but I think you get the idea, right? Like, there is also the opera vocals are on a number of tracks. It's not just that one that I played. It's not the title track. It does show up elsewhere, or they do show up elsewhere. It's music, but there's so much going on, and it is very, very emotive. It's one of those albums that's kind of hard. Again, it doesn't really fit into a specific genre. It is kind of hard to also place to a specific time or place or mood, but it does feel like one of those albums that when you put it on, you start listening to it, it just kind of makes sense. And it's one of those albums that, because there's so much going on and there's a lot of different musical ideas and aspects happening, that it kind of will appeal to pretty much anyone. It's quite universal in that regard. So I don't know. I guess I don't really have anything else to say about it. I think it's just one of those albums that, again, it feels like the culmination of something. And if it's the culmination of 8 years, it kind of makes sense. So this is what I'm gonna, I guess, end with today. This is the album Life is But a Dream from the artist Nicephorus. Something different, but just very nice and ultimately just beautiful album. So I guess that's where we'll cut it right there. So yeah. Anyway, now that I'm back to the YouTube studio and I still don't see anything, I guess I will just have to keep looking down here to kind of keep an eye on what the heck is going on. But yeah, I guess that's kind of it. I have kind of sort of started reviewing the first quarter stuff, and I think for next week I'm going to try, I'm not going to like actually really talk too much about it during the next stream, but I'm going to start in the description. There's going to start being a link to a Google document type thing where I'll be kind of putting up various, I think this year I'm going to try to break it into, which is part of the reason I've been doing this, into EPs, mini albums, and then full-length albums. So again, EPs being like basically the short ones that are 20 minutes or less. Minis being typically 20 to 30 minutes, although if it's like more than 15 minutes but over 8 tracks, I can sometimes put it in the mini. It's kind of a flexible category, but music consumption has gotten weird, and anyway. And then anything that's over 30 minutes long will qualify as an album. But I just because I do think that there is something to be said about it. There's, in the same way that there's a short story, there's a novella, and there's a novel, I do think it's worth, especially in the streaming era where there's really no hard, fast, fixed rules anymore. I do think it's kind of worthwhile delineating those, because you do kind of have different standards when it comes to different lengths of time and perhaps the amount of thought and effort that went into something. Like when you have an artist that puts out a 7-track album and it's 8 minutes long, you're just like, this is not an actual thing. That's a series of TikTok clips or something. But anyway, and then that way I'll be able to like kind of break it into smaller categories, so like EPs, and then sort of rock and metal, rap and hip hop, electronic music, and then kind of pop and indie. And then that way I'll be able to kind of hyper focus in on specific artists and releases for the various the various release delineations, and then for the various subcategories within those, which I think is going to be a lot kind of just easier, more streamlining it in its own way. So yeah, I want to kind of get into that and share that because there's been a lot of music so far. This is the 17th week. Granted, the first 3 were leftovers from 2025, but still that is 14 weeks. And it's probably about time to take a look back at some of that stuff or to get started on that. So, but yeah, I don't know. Tomorrow is the last Friday of April. So next week we'll be kind of looking at some of that stuff. There are definitely some releases from this last week that I had on my list, but like I said, I just was in the description, kind of busy running around. I did all that filming on Friday. I will be putting out last Friday. We put out that first video from the walk around. The second one will be out tomorrow evening Moscow time, so tomorrow morning in the States. And I do think, I hope, like I said, that I've got the hopefully the picture should be a little bit brighter, should pop a little bit better in the videos from now on, because I've been working on a new editing program, and hopefully when the end file gets exported, it does not, the colors don't get compressed. So I'm actually kind of surprised. I didn't realize that before. I just thought that was an issue with my screen, but then I started noticing it was kind of a general thing. Anyway, it's not connected to music at all. So we'll wrap it up. I guess. So keep your eyes open for an actual video tomorrow with more of the walk around of Moscow. It's actually kind of good that I filmed as much as I did last Friday, because we didn't get it, but they predicted snow for today or tomorrow. They predicted it yesterday or 2 days ago, but regardless, the weather has not been very nice, and it is going to get a little bit warmer for the weekend, like up to 12 degrees Celsius, so like 50-ish Fahrenheit, but then it's going to drop back down to, I think, like 10 Celsius, and it's going to be kind of like wet and rainy for the next week, they say. So luckily I've got a fair amount of walk around to upload, so yeah, there will be a steady stream of that coming out as well. Anywho, yeah, new streams Wednesday and Sunday at 9 p.m. Moscow time. I'll be back with more music next Thursday, but until then, everyone have a good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it happens to be where you are. Take care of yourselves, yada, yada, yada. I'll see you when I see you. Until then, пока-пока.